the government has stepped in and taken over and control of healthcare, right? And I think they're going to absolutely try to do the same thing in the financial services industry. They're going to step in and try to control it completely.
My money.
I get money from you.
Money in the bank.
Young money.
It's a rich man's world.
I just like the idea of helping people.
Yeah.
Right? And I didn't want to be broke my whole life. I grew up very poor. And, I thought the financial services industry would be a way to get paid well and help others. Turns out that's true if you do the right thing.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't know that back then. But I bought into the buy term and invest the difference, hook, line, and sinker. That was
Oh, you did?
1991.
I didn't know you worked for the coach. You worked for the coach?
Listen, yeah, it was temporary. They used to license up everybody, get a temporary license, and then go sell all your friends and family. And it's kind of like the meat grinder, and then you move on. But see, I went to work for a company, a big Fortune 500 company that A.O. Williams had worked for prior to moving out on his own. And he actually my understanding is he took that idea of buy term and invest the difference from, there's a Torchmark company.
Was it Torchmark or did it? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And that was their philosophy. They had front-end mutual funds or front-end loaded mutual funds back in the day, Barry, at 8.5%. That was the norm. Right? And then they had term to
Expensive term.
Oh my gosh. But you think that the market's always going to go up forever.
They still do.
It makes sense. And so that's kind of how, that's when I got started, and why I really just wanted to help people, bought into that. But my experience was people didn't outlive the need for life insurance. Right? And then the markets, oddly enough, didn't always go up. These big printouts, these mountain, wave graphs that it's like, oh, if you'd have put $10,000 in the, the mutual fund in 19,
Yeah, the mountain charts.
And I got disillusioned pretty quickly, but I was a registered representative, writing mutual funds, variable contracts, life insurance, some annuities, variable annuities, and things like that. And then I just became very disillusioned. It wasn't true. What I thought to be true wasn't true. And so I couldn't, feel good about it. So I went from there to, just writing life insurance and final expense, Medicare supplement, driving all over the country, the old fashioned way, door to door, store to store, floor, floor to floor. And it was rewarding. Then I wasn't classically trained from a mutual life insurance company perspective, the big old mutual companies that have training. I didn't have any of that. Then about 16 years ago, I went from, it continued, it developed into retirement planning. I held retirement seminars for years where, you invite people to come, you feed them lunch potentially, and then you present legitimate solutions for retirement. Then I met Nelson Nash along about 2004.
Okay, so you and I met Nellie about the same time. Was that in Birmingham? And maybe is that when I met you right around then? Was it?
Yeah, actually, I met Nelson. I mean, I went to a 2-day conference, an industry conference, outside speakers, and they're all presenting their best practices, and there were a couple of authors there that had written books, but everybody was, sharing openly, and a lot of reference material. And in that reference material, and I bought all of the books that they referenced, right? In Nelson's book, Becoming Your Own Banker, was one of the books that I had purchased. And so I took it all home and I finally got around to reading it. And when I read it, I was like, oh my gosh, Barry, I was angry. I couldn't believe I didn't know this about life insurance. I couldn't believe you could do with life insurance what you could do with it. I got up the next morning and I called the number on the back of the book to order some books, and Nelson himself answers, right? And I think it was either late 2003 or maybe 2004. We had a great conversation that wound up something along this line. He said, boy, I hold 10-hour seminars all across the country, and you need to get yourself to one. So I did. I went to Arkansas, I believe, a couple of weeks later, listened to him, sat in the back, took copious notes, flew home, changed everything that I was doing personally with my life insurance. Been teaching my clients how to do it ever since. And back then, Nelson held a think tank annually, sometimes twice a year. And the first think tank that I went to, I think, was a second or third think tank that he had held. And you were presenting there. You were researching your first book, putting it.
The first book, that's right. Yeah, and I'll be always grateful for Nelson because, I was going through a tough time in my life. I had to reinvent myself, and I had realized. At the time, I come to the conclusion a lot of the stuff sold by Wall Street, even to this day, never worked. And I knew life insurance annuities worked, and that was and I'll be forever grateful for Nelson. He says you have to finish this work, Barry, and I did, but I knew I had to have an audience, and so. But anyways, that was the start of it, and. We both had a wonderful relationship with Nelson Nash. What a blessing he was in my life.
You're right, no question. I remember, I don't think we spent a lot of time at that first think tank talking. There's a lot of other people there. I think 18 to 24 agents from across the country. But man, that. Your books are extremely powerful. They're almost required reading. We promote them in our practice every day, day in and day out. So I'll take a shameless, unsolicited plug here. If you haven't,
my kids, I thank you. My kids, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, you need to read the books. Pirates of Manhattan. To this day, it's documented to the nth degree. Pirates of Manhattan 1 and 2, and then Guaranteed Income.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, so I'm going to take the opportunity. I had last year or so, a guy had called me out of the blue, and said, James, I've discovered this infinite banking concept, and and I'm really interested in it, but I want to learn about it. And so I gave him a list of books to read, right? And because he wanted them, and so Becoming Your Own Banker, Nelson's first book, his second book, and then I went through your books, and he said, oh yeah. I've been talking to an agent that wants me to own this indexed universal life. And he gave me a copy of Guaranteed Income. And I asked the guy, I said, well, my gosh, did the agent read the book before he gave it to you? Does he even know what is in the book? The guy's kind of looking at me. And I said, listen, Barry does not promote, endorse, or encourage the use of universal life. So the man might need to read the book to his perspective. Have I ever told you that?
No. Yeah, but that doesn't surprise me, when one of my favorite quotes is, my people perish due to lack of knowledge. And so what I saw, James, so how long have you been in this business now? Since the 80s, right? About the same. How long?
It was 1991, because prior to that, I worked on a temporary license, with A.L. Williams and the Medicare supplement. You could get a temporary license for 6 months.
A temporary license. Okay.
Yeah,
But
remember those?
no, they don't have this up in New England. Only in Texas. It's only in Crazy. Everything's big. But no. So what I'm seeing, James, is, and it's sad, but what I've seen is really in the olden days where people had guaranteed pensions and things like that. And there was some risk retained by institutions. It's all been shifted onto the consumer. And to me, it's tragic because people get so busy. You know, we have clients or busy business people or executives or just regular folks. Okay, you know, they're just trying to make a living. And so what has happened, what I've seen essentially has been more and more shrouding or hiding of risk to the consumer. And you know, index universal life, it has its place. I'm not totally, you know, but it's another risk shifting product onto the consumer.
No
We should.
question. It violates the very spirit and principle of insurance. Insurance is the offsetting of risk to another party, right?
Yeah.
Okay. When the owner, the consumer, purchases universal life of all kinds, indexed, variable universal life, the old-fashioned, straight universal life, they retain the risk. So the risk that we believe we're offsetting to the insurer is retained by us. And then you get all the sales, well, you can't lose money because you have these caps and these floors, and it all sounds good. It makes for a great sales presentation, but the consumer retains the risk. Even having death, that's right. Even the risk of even having a death benefit in force, having an account value, and having a stable premium. None of that is guaranteed. The consumer retains the risk of all of that. And so, my gosh, why buy life insurance if you're going to retain the risk?
Yeah, and so that's what's happened really, not just with the life insurance, but with all these, the 401ks, 403bs, it's the whole bloody casino, James. Would you agree? I mean,
No question.
It's just gambling, And the funny thing is, like, you research out the cultures, like the Germans, they think we're nuts. The Germans, they put 85% of their savings into things like banks and into insurance products and things like that. They think stocks and mutual funds are just gambling. And the more I know about it, and even with these indexing, and I'm a registered investment advisor, and you are as well. So we handle other people's money, so we have to be very prudent about that. And I like indexing, but it's really a lot of these things are turned into what I call them communist funds, and they've turned people into passive. They've turned them into passive pigeons. I get an email from a guy the other day. It's like, oh, isn't indexing great? Well, how much did you lose in March? Oh, 600,000. This is indexing, So,
but I'm back up.
So we're really, I think, really in the wealth preservation business, or the, how can I put it, the financial well-being business. Would that make sense, James, at this point?
Yes, I think so. With what's going on in our economy and in the world economy, it's unprecedented. We've never been here before. I'm an optimist. I don't believe everything is going to collapse tomorrow. But,
yeah, I agree.
There's trouble ahead, acting like we're acting, printing money out of thin air. We're continually kicking the can down the road. But so, yes, I think that we should pay attention, and we should focus on asset preservation, the control of our money, and then we want, of course, tax efficiency, legacy efficiency. Everything that we accumulate and create on this earth is going to be left to someone else when we graduate.
Yeah,
we want So we want that to transfer efficiently as possible. So I think if you focus on the fundamentals of asset preservation, income, and liquidity as we grow older, as we age, I think that becomes more important than a rate of return. I'm not saying that we should not enjoy a rate of return, but I believe that we should, as consumers and individuals, I think we should be realistic on what we should expect as a rate of return. Then you have things like inflation and taxation, which are some of the greatest threats to all of our wealth in our estates. And so I think consumers need to seek out people like you, Barry, that have been around and know what's going on and know how to put together personal finances in a way that we can enjoy a reasonable rate of return with reasonable expectations and mitigate, minimize, or avoid risk, right? And maintain proper liquidity in the face of the unknown future, because the future is unknown. And then we have to be aware of the rising healthcare costs in America. It's tragic, you know. And I think the consumer should seize that opportunity sooner than later, I might add. The government has stepped in and taken over in control of healthcare, right? And I think they're going to absolutely try to do the same thing in the financial services industry. They're going to step in and try to control it completely. And I think guys like you and I have a limited life expectancy in business, my opinion, whether it's 5 years or 10 years. I think the government wants to control your money.
I couldn't disagree with you at all, James. And which one of the things? So what really affected me, which is, and I got introduced to this through our mutual friend Nelson Nash, was the Austrian School of Economics. Matter of fact, I've spoken to Jeff, and the last time I saw Jeff, I was with you. We were down in Nelson's funeral down there. We were down in Birmingham. But one of the things which kind of changed my life was the Austrian School of Economics. Founded by Ludwig von Mises. I don't know if it was founded by him, but he was the major thinker behind that. And then you had guys like Murray Rothbard and who was like probably one of my favorite writers. How much did that influence your life in terms of what you're doing now about having a sound money supply? Because what they're doing now, they're trashing the dollar. And so, but Mises, how much did Mises really make a difference in your life?
Well, like you, I was not really aware of Austrian economics. After 14 years in the financial world, I had no knowledge of Austrian economics per se. And I think Mises is a modern, with Hayek and Rothbard.
Yeah.
They're kind of the modern face of Austrian economics. And Austrian economics is, named Austrian economics, I think, because of Karl Menger and some of the earlier founders of the Austrian School of Economics. And so I was aware of none of that until I met Nelson, right?
Yeah.
Nelson shared with me FEE, the Foundation of Economic Education, and his mentor, Leonard E. Reed and Hayek and a couple of other gentlemen started FEE. And then from FEE sprang Mises, the Mises Institute. And that's when I was exposed to it. I learned that Leonard E. Reed had a hand in bringing Mises over, getting them out of Austria, out of the grips of Nazi Germany.
Nazi Germany, yeah.
And I've learned quite a bit, about Austrian economics since. I don't want to be a professor or an academician, but
neither do I.
Right. I think that they have it more right. The Austrian School of Economics have it more right than the other.
The keys
schools of
print
thought.
money. Yeah. So now the funny thing is that so what we do, I don't know if you still face this, I still do on a day-to-day basis. People say, well, this is so good to be true. Why isn't everyone doing this? Why isn't people using safety, and planning? Do you still get that, James? I still get that.
Yeah, that's very common. I remember, the 4 questions, it seems like, were very prevalent. It's like, why have I never heard of this? The infinite banking. Is it legal?
Is it legal?
Yeah. And can you really do this? And then the 4th one always dates. We date ourselves, because the 4th one is really a statement. It's like, well, I wish I'd have learned this 20 years ago, or 10 years ago, or 30 years ago. And I think a lot of things are going on there. Why the big wide world this isn't more well known. I think what I have come to believe that number one, the life insurance industry, the life insurance companies did not create this concept, the infinite banking concept.
No, it was, yeah.
Most of the companies look at it as a sales gimmick or a sales tool, right? You know, I've heard some of these big wheels in the life insurance industry. It's like, oh, you can't sell life insurance, you know, so you got to use that kind of gimmick, which the guys probably don't even own life insurance. And let me say this, that you would be surprised how many life insurance home office executives, presidents, VPs, RVPs, do not own life insurance. All right, just think on that for a bit. Okay, so the life insurance industry didn't create it, and typically, historically, outstanding loans on life insurance policies was a precursor to a lapse. So the life insurance company, the industry, typically looks at outstanding loans as policies that are going to lapse, right? So they don't really have a positive view on outstanding loans. And then some of them, Barry, have the same mentality as every other financial institution. Let me ask you this. How much of your money does your bank want you to withdraw?
Yeah.
None. And then how much of your money does your bank want you to leave with them? Right. All of it. Some of the life insurance companies have the same attitude. They don't want you to take a loan. They don't want you to exercise a contractual right that you have to borrow against the cash value. Right? They're afraid you're not going to pay it back. So who wants to live in fear anyway? I'm just saying.
Yeah, that's what they're selling. You know, it's fear, James. And would you agree? I mean, if we go in this clear-headed, this is how it works. This is so. That's unfortunately that's fear sells in America. Not doing the right thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then, too, you know, back in the day, I think mutual funds really got it. The first mutual funds were created in the late 30s, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Mass Financial, actually in Boston, believe it or not. I'm right here. I'm right here at ground zero for the fund industry. You know, Putnam was started here. Mass Financial was started here. Infidelity. I mean, Wellington, which is essentially the back office for Vanguard. They're all here. So yeah, but that's when they were started. And yeah.
If you look, you know, historically from about the 50s and the 60s and previous to that, Americans held a lot of wealth in life insurance. You know, their farm, their hard assets, and money, they held it in life insurance policies. So the mutual fund industry gets its start in the 30s, and it's it's all about assets under management. Then you go through the 80s. I mean, it's kind of odd if you step back and look that the 401k, the IRA, the Keogh plan came out in the 80s, the mid to late 80s. That's when Congress, through Ralph Nader and the consumer protectionists, you know, tried to beat up, and they did a thorough job of beating up whole life insurance. And then there was a weak defense from the life insurance industry. So, you know, basically the Senate colluded with the mutual fund industry and said, oh, life insurance is too good. We're going to have to put limits on what you can put in. You know, this is a tax loophole for the rich, which is hogwash, right? So in the late 80s, the 401ks come out. Right. The mutual fund industry has been competing against life insurance since the mutual fund industry's conception. And then Congress colludes with people like A.L. Williams, the term promoters, the mutual fund industry, beating up life insurance. So adding to why people are not maybe more aware, why haven't we been more aware of the infinite banking concept? Some of it is on purpose, right? From the life insurance industry, from the financial services industry as a whole, Wall Street, right? Because your money must reside somewhere. And if you're not putting large premiums in real estate or life insurance, or buying large, you know, tracts of land or real estate, then, you know, typically the narrative is you need to put your money in the market.
You need to gamble with it. We need to gamble with it. You know, the market always goes up. You know, you need, you know, it's. But that, thank God, I was a blessing in my life. I think it was a God moment when I discovered, holy moly, who were the biggest buyers of permanent life insurance was the banks, the Federal Reserve. Okay, the people who are controlling the whole bloody economy, and no one knows about it, even to this day, James.
I know. It's like A.O. Williams, right? The term promoter. The guy's probably drinking Mai Tais in the Florida Keys. I don't know. I'm not disparaging him. I'm just sharing my experience, right? So coach, his dad dies early and he had whole life insurance. And so, oh my gosh, that's the evil thing. So you got to buy term, you have more death benefit. And so he starts this multi-level marketing organization, writing life insurance and mutual funds, right? A.O. Williams. Buy term and invest the difference.
The coach.
Right. Well, who purchased them? I mean, what allowed him to drink Mai Tais off the Florida Keys, right?
Citigroup.
Citigroup. Oh, okay.
Citigroup.
Right. Okay. Now Citigroup. It was Prime America, right? A.L. Williams. Then it turned into Prime America. And then Citigroup buys Prime America. You tell us, my good friend Barry, how much whole life insurance does Citigroup own?
At least four to 5, 6 billion.
Okay.
That's the cash surrender value. Yeah. So the whole. Yeah. So that's
they're doing one thing and telling their consumers to do something else. What a coincidence.
So anyway, it's complete hypocrisy. Okay. So with these, and I shared with you some of my private research with these banks like UBS and Bank of America and Lloyd's, and we could go on and on and on and on and on and on, how they buy permanent life insurance and annuity products for themselves, but they want you to gamble with everything.
Yeah, it's working for somebody, isn't it?
They make them rent. So let me ask you. So you do business all around the country like we're doing now, but you've been able to get like some high-end executives come in to say, with some very prominent consulting firms saying, James, I want to do this. Could you share us about some of these? I know we don't have to mention the company who they are.
I can't do that.
We can, okay, but can you just tell our listeners about some of these very highly paid, very high net worth people, how they've approached you?
Yeah, typically they just call or email. Right? They've done their homework, and some of these, some of these are household names.
I know.
Institutions, right? They're presidents, vice presidents, regional presidents, or vice presidents. But they've done their homework. They all know that there's something wrong in the economy, right? And they're just like all of us, becoming disillusioned with the typical financial advice where we assume all the risk and pay all the fees, and so they're just like us. They just make more money than us, right? They have a different lifestyle and all that, but they're still they're salt of the earth people, right? Yeah. And they discover it like everybody else. They run across it. They just happen to be exposed to the idea, and then they do their research, and they wind up calling. And quite honestly, some of these guys are forensic accountants.
Yeah.
Right? So beyond what's going on in the big wide world, they have looked at the books of life insurance companies, right? And not every life insurance company is created equal, although I do believe it is mutual life insurance companies against the world.
Yeah, it is.
That's my
the best
philosophy. So that's how they, and that's who they are. That's how they come to get in contact with us, just doing research. They get exposed to the idea. They've done some research, which winds up really taking somebody. If you genuinely research the infinite banking concept, you're going to wind up at the Nelson Nash Institute, right? That's Birmingham, Alabama. And today, there's a lot more videos and podcasts and books on the subject than there was 15 years ago. When you wrote your book,
Yeah.
Nelson's book was the only other thing out there that talked legitimately about the economy and whole life insurance, right? So, I mean, that's it. They're just like us. They do their own research, however they get exposed to it, and they look at the financials of life insurance companies, and then they wind up calling me and people like you, which is some of the smartest decisions they've made, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the whole thing is that and I'm a capitalist, okay? Both you and I are small business people. We have payrolls to meet and expenses to meet and the whole thing. So I'm all for profits. But also, because you're in the great state of Texas, now there's certain states like Texas and New York and Florida and so forth, where these products, these annuities and insurance products, they're like gold in terms of asset protection. Can you tell us, our listeners or our viewers, if you will, about the Ken Lay protection, if you will? You know the Ken Lay story about how Enron. Do you know that story, right?
I do. I do. Texas, life insurance is 100% asset protected.
Yeah.
Florida, New York, California is pretty weak, but
yeah.
And I'm bringing them into the conversation because New York, Texas, Florida, and a couple of other states.
Arizona is really strong. Arizona is strong. I think Massachusetts is strong. Go ahead.
But some of these states, because life insurance is regulated by the states.
Yeah.
There's oversight by the federal government, minimum. But life insurance is regulated by the states, and some states are tougher on insurers than others. New York is a tough place to do business for insurers. As a matter of fact, very old life insurance companies are not doing business in New York beginning this year, 2020. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, you and I discussed that. That's a problem. I'm doing some business in New York. It's a real pain in the next state. I mean, it's just, well, that's because Wall Street controls it anyhow. But that's
Florida's relatively tough on the life insurance companies. Texas is very tough on the life insurance companies. So it's kind of good and bad. They're tough on the life insurance industry. They're trying to protect the citizens of the states, right? And so, your point, asset protection. There's some states better than others, and Texas is one of the best.
It is one of the best.
I must say that Texas is losing some of their backbone, in my opinion. I've been a Texas resident my whole life. I love Texas. But they need to get a stiffer backbone in Austin, my opinion. So I'll just leave it at that. Texas is a great state. Okay.
Yeah, but the reason I bring up was the Ken Lay protection. Remember, because Enron was in 2000. James was the I think 7th largest company in the United States, whatever, in terms of market capitalization. And then, of course, it imploded. It was one of the greatest corporate bankruptcies. But then when he died, he had like 13 million in assets and 13 million liabilities, but he essentially was wiped out. But he had $11 million left in split dollar life insurance from his old Enron. And then it's like $3.5 million with annuity on his life. And so when they set up his estate because he was a Texas resident, Linda Lay, would she get like 14, 15 million and no one could touch it?
You think he knew what he was doing?
I think And now the whole thing is that, but what people really don't know is that this is what the de-risking now, which is going on via insurance companies for major corporations. And I've shared that with you. General Motors, Federal Express,
this pension risk transfer, right? Big deal in the industry. Pension risk transfer. These companies can't guarantee, can't deliver these pension benefits that have been promised. They're built on 7, 8, 9% rates of return. Are you kidding me?
Ain't gonna happen.
Kidding me? It's not going to happen, and they know it. So they're getting rid of the risk. They're transferring the risk away from them. Where's it going, Barry? Who are they transferring the risk to?
the insurance companies, the life companies, So yeah, it's because they can't leverage themselves to the hilt. Although there's another story why you and I stick with well-capitalized mutual companies, because Wall Street's kind of getting into this space, and I had to recommend people stay away from these folks because it's now. Some of the other things is the. Do you think people really know, James, what's going on? Because you and I discuss economics and stuff like that every time we meet. Do people really understand what's going on within the fragility within the economy?
I don't know if they really understand or to what depth that they understand or don't understand, but I think the consensus that I experience is they all know something's wrong. To what degree of era the markets are in, the U.S. economy. I don't know that they know, or I don't know how much they know. If I can, let me rephrase that. I think the majority of people knows that something is wrong. Do they know how bad it could be, or do they know the consequences? I think no. I think that's pretty much unknown, but I think they're aware. I mean, I'm seeing people, they're asking to buy silver, they're asking to buy gold. They want to de-risk, they want to mitigate. I'm not saying move completely out of the market, but they want to get on the path of moving out of the market. They want asset protection. They want some safety. We just want some stability. We want some surety. We want to be able to be confident if we're going to retire in the future or move into passive income time. We just want some sense of knowing that we're not going to be broke, that we're going to be able to keep or maintain our lifestyle. And that's hard to know. You can't know that when the majority of your money is in the market. Who can know that? Unless you just have, millions and millions of dollars in the market, and then, you can, and you have a very conservative lifestyle. So the short answer is, Barry, I think that the majority of the people that I speak with know that there's something wrong, and they're aware, and they're trying to mitigate the unknown.
So I guess you and I have a lot of work. We're in an education business, aren't we? Because if you look underneath the hood, and we know what's going on, and and the funny thing is that I talk with some really like yourself, some really well-educated people, and I've had engineers here in this very office here, who design jet engines and things like that, or very, very technical, sharp guys, and they get infuriated. They say, well, why is GE, I worked for GE for 35 years, and you're telling me what GE's doing and to de-risk their pension plans, and they never told me about this. Or like I have a following with pilots, and they're very educated, very disciplined guys. I like them. And they said, no one's ever told us this. Everyone said just put it all in the market, maximize my 401k. So
that's very common. These guys, these people, they know how to make money. They know how to save money. They're very good at what they do. But they're, like you mentioned earlier, we're all busy. We're all working. And whenever we engage with, investment advisors at whatever level, we expect them to do their job and to pay attention. And, that's not always the case. So I see an awful lot of that, between the pilots, the engineers, the business owners, the real estate investors. And then everyday all-American people working hard, saving money, living within or below their means. So they're accumulating money and wealth and assets, but they don't really know what to do with it. They don't really know how to structure it consistently or congruently, right, for their own benefit. The idea of piling up a bunch of money until retirement and then spending it down is not, that's not the best default strategy.
No, it's
the old 60-40 portfolio. Now the target date. No. I mean, I'm not saying it won't work. Yeah, I'm not saying it can't work. You know, if you work hard enough and you eat beans and rice long enough and you pile up enough money, maybe you'll outlive that pile of money, but maybe not. You know, and maybe if they engage with somebody who's educated and competent and comes from an educational perspective and not a sales perspective, they could probably do much better than they realize. That's, you know, what I believe. And I get up every day to push back the frontiers of ignorance when it comes to the infinite banking concept, because it's a life-changing philosophy. It's a life-changing activity. Like, lowers your blood pressure. That does wonders for your health and your life expectancy. At the end of the day, when I can control my money, regardless of interest rates that I cannot control, and regardless of markets that I cannot control, what is that worth? And then how do you put that value on a statement?
So James, this has been wonderful. It's always good to see my friend James Neathery. How can people find out more about you, and how can they contact you? And you still have the video too, Banking with Life. Am I correct? Or
yes, Banking with Life DVD. That's a documentary style video that promotes the idea of sound money, natural law, Austrian economics, the infinite banking concept. It's not a promotion of me or anyone, but that is available. And I think I produced that and released it on the 100-year anniversary of the Federal Reserve in 2017. Yeah. So it's out there for 7 years. And really, I should do Banking with Life 2 and 3.
Yeah, because the Fed's, you know, they're essentially destroying the economy. This money printing never ends up well. But James,
so you can
go ahead.
bankingwithlife.com, and there's a lot of resources there. And then our contact information is on there. They can even buy your books, Barry, on my website.
Well, I thank you. My children thank you. You know, but James, let's do this again sometime, because people really need to know what's going on, and I'm so grateful that you're a friend, and you know, and just a good guy.
He counted on America to be passive. He counted wrong.